another Kray video, please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any videos. And for people really interested in the Krays, check out our private Facebook group, Krays Crime Lords of London. A direct link for the group is in the YouTube description section. We're a friendly and moderated group which has been running since January 2018. Come and give us a try sometime.
The trial was finally over. It had lasted for 39 days. At the time, it was the longest and most expensive murder trial in the history of British criminal justice. I had had more than 300 torturous hours, which had done my brain in, leaving me mentally drained and lagged, my nerves in tatters. And now I face 10 years behind prison bars for something I know I haven't done. The full weight of what had happened hit me when I walked into the security wing at Brixton that evening. I went into the room with 4 cells, and the governor, the assistant governor, and the chief prison officer were standing there, solemn-faced, like a bizarre welcoming committee. They were not sure what to say, but they knew enough about convicted men not to be flippant or sarcastic. On a table in front of them were cardboard boxes for our clothes. For 8 months on remand and for more than a month of the trial, we had worn our own clothes. But now we had to exchange them for prison issue. We put our clothes in the boxes and knew it would be a long time before we saw them again. They took away the boxes and banged us up. I wanted darkness to cover me so that I could be alone with my thoughts. But we were all Category A prisoners, maximum security men, and a red light was left on all the time. I didn't feel suicidal, but I was depressed. The prison clothes felt awful. The atmosphere in the cell was terrible, and all the time that red light was on, and the prison officers looked through the flap in the cell door, invading my thoughts. I thought again of Mum and the old man and the rest of our family, and wondered how they were taking the sentences. I sat there, my eyes dosed to that insensitive red light, trying to work out how it had all happened. 10 years. It sounded like a lifetime. And for what? Just for keeping my mouth shut. I fell asleep through sheer exhaustion. I felt as if I'd been digging a road all day. That first terrible night as a convicted criminal was worse than anything I'd experienced in my life. In the morning, the red light had gone out and the wing was bright with March sunshine. Ronnie came out of his cell and clapped his hands. He looked at the prison officers. "Good morning, gentlemen. What a lovely morning." The officers looked at him strangely. "There's no point being downhearted," Ronnie said. "We've got to carry on." One officer turned to me and said, "He's something else, him." I said he'd always been like that and would never change. The cheerful banter continued while we had our breakfast, and then it was time for exercise. As we were on our way out, Ronnie was laughing with one of the officers, a tall, heavily built bloke in his early 40s. "What I'm going to do today," Ronnie said, "is write off for a world cruise, because that's one thing I want to do when I get out." The officer was half laughing with Ronnie, and before he knew what he was saying, the words had slipped out. "Oh, well," he said, "you've got 30 years to save up for it." He knew he had said the wrong thing, but it was too late. Ronnie went white and moved forward threateningly. "Ronnie," said the officer quickly, "I'm so sorry. I apologize. You were larking about and I forgot and said it without thinking." I believed him. So did Ronnie. He calmed down immediately and told the officer to forget it. But he said, it wasn't a nice thing to say. After exercise, the officer came to my cell and asked if Ronnie was still upset. The incident was still playing on his mind, he said, and it was such a stupid thing to say. I said Ronnie had forgotten it. But I don't think the officer believed me, because he went up to Ronnie at lunchtime and apologized yet again. Later that day, Ronnie sent off for some brochures. That officer's slip of the tongue was sparked off by the tension that surrounded the twins. And that tension was not helped by some idiots in a cell about 50 feet away on the opposite side of the square, a section full of drunks doing a month, or creeps finishing 6 months or whatever for petty crimes. One day, as we were exercising in the square, 2 chaps, young by the sound of their voices, called down mockingly, "I've got another 10 days to do, and you've got 30 years. How do you feel about that?" Then they laughed. The taunts went on and on for a couple of days. Finally, Ronnie could stand it no longer. The tormentors were probably cowards who would have topped themselves if they had been given 30 years, and he wanted them silenced. He asked the security wing's chief prison officer to tell whoever was responsible to shut up. The prison officer was delighted to step in. He thought it was unfair when Ronnie and Reggie were taking their punishment so well. Also, he would have to deal with the problem if Ronnie lost his rag. Later that day, he told them, "By the way, I found out who it was. I don't think you'll be hearing any more from them." While we had all been in the square on exercise, the officer had stood in a cell, waiting and watching. When these 2 idiots stood up and started their cowardly shouting, he noted their cell and went round. "Hello, you brave little pair," he said. "Those blokes down there are doing 30 years. But I'll tell you something, at least they're men. You snivelling idiots are causing us problems by upsetting them. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. If I hear one more peep out of you, I'll bring Ronnie and Reggie through here on our way somewhere and leave them with you for 5 minutes. I'm warning you, one more peep." The 2 guys, in their mid-20s, were the type who would mug old ladies or pick on victims who couldn't fight back, the type who tease animals through bars, the type with no bottle. Not surprisingly, we didn't hear another word from them. One day, the twins and I were staring at the security cage and saw 3 guys taunting a tall, spindly, ginger-haired bloke who looked like an office worker. The 3 bullies just wanted to have a go at someone, and we were not going to stand for it. We shouted out to them that they were nothing but cowards, that they were brave only because there were 3 of them. The men took one look at us and decided to leave it out. As they walked away, the weak-looking office worker looked up and nodded his thanks. We discovered later his name was Paddy Sullivan, and he was a major in the IRA. He was waiting to come up for trial. 6 months later, I got a message from Freddie Foreman. His son, Gregory, had been called in by the headmaster at his public school and asked to give his father the message. Paddy Sullivan sends his regards and best wishes to Charlie. Apparently, the headmaster knew Paddy well and had been to visit him in Wormwood Scrubs. Paddy was obviously one of those people with a long memory. When I got sentenced, it seemed like the end of the world, but I never thought of trying to escape. When the Mitchell case was thrown out, it helped me come to terms with the 10 years. It was still terrible being punished so severely for something I didn't do, but at least it was not a life sentence. I figured I would be out in 7 years if I kept my nose clean. Short of being beaten up and forced to retaliate, I reckoned I could keep myself under control. But if I had been sentenced to life on the murder charge, I do think I would have changed and tried to escape at every opportunity. I would probably have been killed. But what would it have mattered? The twins know that they did certain things, and they do not cry about their sentences, but I would not have been able to accept it like that, because I was innocent. I dread to think what sort of twisted, hateful character I would have turned into had that Mitchell rubbish been believed. As it was, I did my best to accept that what was done, and nothing was going to change it. It would have been easy to give in to my hate and bitterness, to lose control and smash things up in frustration, but I knew that could destroy me. So, as the days and weeks and eventually months wore on, I gritted my teeth and battled to keep myself under control. It was not easy, though, and when I was finally moved from Brixton to Chelmsford in Essex 13 months later, I still had not come to terms with the fact that I was caged like an animal for something I did not do. My world at Chelmsford consisted of just 10 other A-category prisoners in a small maximum security block with cameras watching every move. We were treated like children. Normal prisoners walked freely to their work, but we were led everywhere and led back. We would have to wait for prison officers to fill in the passbook and to log the time. When we left for lunch, we had to wait for someone to escort us 50 yards or so. It was frustrating beyond belief. There were 30 cells for just 10 prisoners, and my fellow inmates got so bored that they would move from one cell to another for something to do. Because we were in such a confined space, we were allowed certain freedoms to save us from going completely out of our minds. If you wanted to work, you did. If you didn't, no one made you. I felt I needed to keep myself busy. One week, I would go into the workshop and saw iron for traffic triangles. The next, I would wash the rubber floors. I even got into cooking. The kitchens would send the food to us and we would try to make it appetizing. But it was the outside exercise I lived for. We played volleyball every day for 2 years, and football. The exercise period was 1 hour, and cameras in the 4 corners of the playing field watched us all the time while a helicopter hovered overhead. Such expensive security was senseless. You'd have needed to have been Superman to clear the wire and the barbed wire on the high walls behind the playing field. The prison officers were hand-picked and as good as gold, and I'd ask them about the vast amount of money being squandered unnecessarily. They would merely shrug their shoulders and say, "Don't ask us, Charlie. We only work here." On Mondays, we were taken into the main prison, an elaborate process in which we had to pass between electric doors and bulletproof glass windows. But it was worth it. The library was there, and we were allowed to spend 15 minutes picking books. It was like a holiday. In the evenings, once or twice a week, a woman would come in to teach us handicrafts. She was a lovely lady, in her 50s, and we looked forward to her visits. You have to give her credit. She was very brave, although I think she knew she was perfectly safe. We all thought so much of her. We would have died rather than let anything happen to her. I told her once that what she was doing was worthwhile, that I admired her. I promised myself I'd take her some flowers when I got out, but sadly it was one of the things I never got around to. Wally Probyn was a clever bloke. He was the man who arranged John McVicker's escape from Durham prison by knocking a hole in a shower and covering it with papier-mâché until it was time to go. Wally was due to escape too, but something happened and only McVicker got away. During the riots at Durham in 1964, some prisoners locked themselves in an office and read reports written about them from the parole board. The men could not believe the terrible untrue things the prison staff had written. It seemed incredible that a prison officer had the power to poison a prisoner's record with the stroke of a pen if he didn't like him. Suddenly, it became all important to me to know what my report said, and Wally knew an officer who promised to find out. Nothing could have prepared me for the shock of hearing what that report, which my immediate future depended on, said. The exact words were, "Charles Kray. This is not his natural attitude. It is all a pretense. This cannot be his normal behavior, because he is too nice. He has caused no problems since he has been in this prison, but we know this is a big act. I was shell-shocked. Just because I said hello and please and thank you and didn't go around hitting people, they thought something was wrong. I tried to treat the report with the contempt it deserved, but it was impossible. The injustice of it all burned into me deeply, and there was nothing I could do about it. As I entered my second year at Chelmsford, my bitterness at being robbed of important years of my life began to fade, and I softened a little. I formed close bonds with some people I might not have wanted to know outside. Somehow, when people are thrown together in jail, you don't think of their crimes, you just get on with the business of living. Someone I did get close to was John Duddy, a small grey-haired man sentenced to life, with Harry Roberts for the Shepherd's Bush murder of 3 policemen in the early 60s. It choked me one day when he told me he'd decided to tell his wife they were finished. I felt he should not do it because they had been married many years and were still in love. But he said he knew he was never going to get out of prison, and he didn't want her to waste her life. She was too good for him, he said. His wife didn't want to know about a divorce, and she told him she would still come to see him, whether he liked it or not. John was pleased, of course, but insisted she should visit less frequently to give herself a rest. He was a very unselfish man, and over the next year, we got very close. One Sunday evening at about 7 o'clock, I was called in to see the prison officer and told I was being moved to another prison early the next morning. At about 8 p.m., John Duddy came up to see me. He was pleased for my sake that I was going, but sorry to see me go because he said things had been good since I'd been there. Close to tears, he said he wasn't going to wait until 9 p.m. to bang up. He was going in early. But he asked me to knock on his door in the morning to say goodbye. It was all rather emotional. You do get close to people in a short time in prison. At 6 a.m. the following morning, I was handcuffed and taken to a security van by 6 prison officers. My report, I was reliably informed, read, "We have come to the conclusion that this is not an act with Charles Kray. It is just normal behavior. It had taken someone 2 years to work that out. And now I was being transferred to Albany on the Isle of Wight, a couple of 100 yards from Parkhurst, where the twins were held. While I was in Albany, I heard that John Duddy had died of cancer." We travelled through London on the journey to the Isle of Wight, and my stomach knotted when we hit the East End. It was a weird feeling, looking through the darkened windows at all the old familiar places. It hurt, but at the same time, it was lovely. So Poplar and Bow and Mile End and Whitechapel were still there. The joke in prison is, don't worry about getting over the wall. The world is still there. And now I could see it for myself. The driver pulled up at mime lights, and I told my 6 guards that I'd lived only a minute away. I'd got quite close to them in 2 years, and one of them said, "If we had our way, Charlie, we'd nip you down there for a quick cuppa." But of course the security was so tight that it was out of the question. The van was in radio contact with police stations at different points en route, as if someone expected a helicopter to hop out of the sky and pluck me to freedom. We moved away from the lights, and suddenly we were in Whitechapel Road. There, staring me in the face, was my old factory, with the sign, Berman and Kray, still there. What I would have given to walk along that street just then, even as a road sweeper. Thank you for listening. I hope you are enjoying hearing my story, and I'll see you in the next one.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please join our Facebook group. It's called Krays Crime Lords of London. We're a friendly moderated group with over 1,000 Kray and other celebrated gangster videos available for view. There's also thousands of images in the photos sections. The link for the group is in the YouTube description section. I hope we see you there soon.
Leave a like and subscribe.